It's been 25 years since the franchise made its debut, and Nintendo for some bizarre reason decided not to even leave a single note about it. I know the series isn't as popular as the Mario series or even the Zelda series, but it would have been nice to at least acknowledge something about it. This is, of course, my favorite game series of all time, Metroid. You probably remember the first game on the NES as being the first ever review from Reviews TS here. That was several months ago, but I felt as if I should have continued the series a bit further. But I also wanted to get a few other games out of the way, such as Ghostbusters and the Castlevania games. And then Kyle came along and we did Battletoads. When the hell is he ever going to do another review? Unfortunately, I'm currently unable to record footage from my Wii and DS, so I won't be reviewing the Prime games or Other M anytime soon, which is a bummer really, because I had a lot to say about Other M. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my Metroid Marathon. Now before we move on to the next Metroid game, I just want to take the time to give you a basic summary of the plot so far, so that way you get part of the idea of what's going on. If you honestly don't care about the story, then you are a simple-minded fool and you can just go right ahead to this time code right here. If you're still here at this point, then let's get started. Planet Zebes, a rather peaceful place. Our story begins with a little girl named Samus, who's been living on Zebes all her life. But for years, the Zebians have been rivals with a group called the Space Pirates, and one day they decided to attack. Immediately, the Zebians called for police, known as the Galactic Federation. The Space Pirates are led by a dragon named Ridley, and has, unfortunately for Samus, killed her mother right in front of her eyes. Samus's dad sneaks into one of the Space Pirate ships, but sadly decides to blow himself up along with some of the Space Pirates that have found him because the Galactic Federation didn't look like they were going to make it on time. So pretty much everyone on Zebes is dead, but Samus appears to be the only survivor in the planet. Bird-like creatures called the Chozo see what's happened and decide to take care of Samus themselves. The Chozo birds are also the reason that the Metroids exist. They were originally made to eat parasites known as X, which we'll get further into later on. However, the Space Pirates have also found out that the Metroids can suck the lives of anything living. So they decide to exploit this and make their own Metroids by exposing beta rays into one Metroid. Throughout the years, the Chozo have taught Samus how to fight, and eventually, when she's old enough, chooses to join the Galactic Federation so she can prove justice to the galaxy. For Samus's first mission, it's her job to go back to Zebes and wipe out the Mother Brain, the leader of all the Space Pirates. So think of Ridley as like the Darth Vader of the Space Pirates, and Mother Brain as the Emperor. As well as Mother Brain, Samus also has to destroy Ridley and friend of the Space Pirates, Kraid. This is where the first game comes in. If you've seen my review of the first game, then you'll know that Samus does destroy the Mother Brain along with Ridley and Kraid and manages to escape Zebes before it explodes. And this is where Metroid 2 comes in. Now before we move on to Metroid 2, I did say at the end of my first review that I would show some of the special passwords in the NES version of Metroid 1. So let's take a quick look at those first before we move on to the second game in the series. Once again, if you honestly don't care, then just go to this time code right here. If you've been skipping twice now, then my god, you have no patience. This is one which a lot of Metroid fans should know. The famous Justin Bailey password with a crap load of dashes. It's pretty much just starting the game with all of your equipment, but you also get to play as Samus without her power suit. Why does she suddenly have green hair? She had brown hair at the final scene, and now she's suddenly looking like Terra from Final Fantasy VI? Oh well. And then there's this password. NAR password with a crap load of zeros. Not only do you start the game with all of your equipment, but you also have unlimited missiles and unlimited health, pretty much making you an armor-wearing, green-haired chick of destruction. And finally, there's this password, and keep in mind this only works for some copies of the game. Yes, there is a password by that name. And if you think that's weird, then wait till you see the actual effect. What it does is keep you on the first screen of the game with a fuzzy blue background, and if you try moving to one side you'll just come out of the other, so you're basically stuck in this one area with no way out. Have fun! Okay, so now with all that out of the way, let's move on to Metroid 2, The Return of Samus for the Game Boy. Upon starting the game, we are again immediately taken to the title screen, only this time with no basic storyline whatsoever. So if you didn't have the manual for this game back then with no access to the internet, then good luck to you trying to figure out what exactly is going on here. So once you start a new game, we are once again taken to the first screen of the game with no cutscenes or backstory at all. This is also interesting to know that this is the first time we see Samus' spaceship, something we're going to be seeing a lot more often in Metroid games. So after defeating the Mother Brain, the Galactic Federation send you on another mission where the goal is to exterminate every single Metroid on their home planet SR388. Now you might be thinking that since the Metroids were the nastiest creatures from the first game, then this game must be pretty difficult. Well, yes and no. Although for these type of Metroids I would more or less call it downgrading. There are 4 types of evolved Metroids in this game. Alpha Metroids, Gamma Metroids, Zeta Metroids, and finally Omega Metroids. Alpha Metroids, like I've said before, are quite a downgrade from simply being jellyfish with fangs that can suck the life out of you. You can kill these guys without them even touching you. Gamma Metroids aren't too hard, but they're certainly not that easy either because of the electric attack and the number of missiles it needs to kill it. Zeta and Omega Metroids are incredibly aggressive. These are undoubtedly the toughest Metroids to kill because they can take a lot of missiles. Not only that, but Omega Metroids also like to spit fireballs at you. The counter at the bottom right corner tells you how many Metroids you need to destroy in order to complete your mission. Samus, unlike the first game, comes a bit more equipped this time with some new abilities. If there's one thing that really pissed me off in the first game was that a portion of the enemies were too small to kill. Metroid 2, however, now allows Samus to crouch, so you won't have to worry anymore of those enemies that were just about a centimeter away from your laser. She's also now able to shoot down, but unfortunately she's still unable to shoot diagonally. Damn. A huge improvement over the first game is that she also starts off with a long beam. Seriously, whose idea was that to start you with a pathetic beam like that? Another major improvement is that you now start off with 99 units of energy instead of 30. Thank God! And instead of having to write down the password every time you die, you can actually have a save file. In order to save your game, you just need to stand on top of these posts and press start. And finally, Samus also has the Morph Ball, or Mari as the first game called it, and 30 missiles already in your arsenal. Come to think of it, how did Samus lose most of her equipment in the first place? The power-ups from the first game are all back. The Morph Ball bombs, the high jump, the ice beam, the wave beam, the Varia suit, and finally the screw attack. Once again being what has got to be one of the coolest power-ups ever made in video game history. Somersaulting into enemies has never been so satisfying. But being a sequel, we're also introduced to new power-ups. There's the Spacer Beam, which covers the most width out of all the beams. The Plasma Beam, which doesn't cover as much width, but is definitely the most powerful and can go through enemies. There's the Spring Ball, which allows you to jump while in Morph Ball form. The Spider Ball, which after pressing down in Morph Ball form, allows you to stick and climb onto walls to find secrets. And finally there's the Space Jump, which enables you to jump an infinite height when you rhythmically press the jump button. You're pretty much unstoppable when the Space Jump and the Screw Attack combine with each other, but it's so cool to completely obliterate enemies at your own will. Booyah! So they're pretty cool power-ups available, but unfortunately for the beams, you're still not able to hold all of them at once. So if you don't like a particular beam, or if you just want to switch, then you would have to travel all the way to the beam you actually want. There is a specific area which holds all 4 beams in different rooms, but you're not there until much later in the game, and really you just wish you were able to hold all of them at once. There are also energy and refill stations, which I think the first game should have really needed. Planet SR388 isn't really quite as large as Evis, but that's probably because the biggest thing that Metroid 2 changed is the progression. You see, even with all your upgraded gear, you're blocked from going to the next area because of lava. In order to clear the lava, you have to dispatch every Metroid around the area you're in. After dealing with the last Metroid, an earthquake will occur, letting you know that you're able to go past the lava. Oh, and guess what? There's still no map. So be prepared to pull your hair out every time you think you've searched every nook and cranny, but still can't find that one damn Metroid that stops you from progressing to the next area. Okay, only one Metroid left. So after space jumping or using the Spider Ball to get to the top of this incredibly large bit of space, we see that there's a Metroid egg that we can't seem to reach yet. Wait, what's going on with the Metroid counter? Oh man, there are 9 Metroids now! Alright, what Metroids have I got to fight? Ah! Original Metroids! Okay, so the last wave of Metroids you have to destroy are the same ones that we saw at the end of the first game. And like the first game, you have to freeze them and shoot 5 missiles in order to kill them. Luckily in the same area you can grab the ice beam in case you didn't have it already. So after destroying all the original Metroids and you have one last one to kill again, we can finally confront the Queen Metroid. And to start off the fight, we ignore her completely. By this point you're probably going to get hurt quite a bit from the Metroid, so you may want to escape down the secret passageway and refill your health and missiles and get the ice beam in case you didn't have it already. So after refilling everything, we can take out the Queen. And good lord is she easy. All you need to do is shoot missiles at her face and screw attack her projectiles. And when she opens her mouth, you can throw a bunch of missiles to stun her for a little bit and use a spider ball to get in her mouth and towards her stomach so you can bomb away. After dealing enough damage to the queen, she begins to fade away and you now have access to get to the egg we saw earlier. Uh-oh, looks like it's hatching.
Aww.
It's a baby Metroid. Now, oddly enough, it mistakes Samus for being its mother. I would honestly die of fright if the first thing I saw upon birth was this. So the rest of the game involves you and the infant Metroid getting back to your ship. When you're there, the credits roll and you get this weird looking running animation. Metroid 2 is also the first game to show us how much time we took to complete the game. And if you beat it in under 3 hours, we get to see Samus out of her power suit again. Why does her hair flow in space? What, did Michael Bay have something to do with this game? Now, I can definitely see why people think this is the black sheep of the series. For one thing, even though Metroid 2, I guess, has more bosses than the first game, it gets rather tiresome fighting the same enemies over and over again. Well, at least the Queen is a breath of fresh air. Secondly, I really don't like the idea of carrying only one beam weapon. I mean, for God's sake, why does a beam weapon get replaced? It just feels like a waste of time getting a specific beam weapon when it's eventually going to get replaced anyway. Thirdly, I know this is Game Boy standards, but why is there a lack of music? Most of the time it's just dead silence apart from hearing Samus' footsteps, which by the way are a lot quieter than the first game. The only track I particularly liked was the one that plays at the beginning of the game. All the other few pieces that play are incredibly dull and not very memorable, with maybe the exception of the music that plays when you're walking with the infant Metroid. And fourthly, I myself am not a huge fan of some of the level designs. It has the same problem that the first game had of just copying the same layout of each area over and over again, which is most likely one of the reasons you'll get lost. And finally, why is there still no map? How exactly are the players supposed to know what the whole area looks like? But even with those problems, and the fact that this is to most people the worst Metroid game in the series, as a game itself it's pretty good. I find it incredibly satisfying every time I kill the Metroid Queen, and the music that plays afterwards always gives me a sense of joy. So once again, I would only recommend this if you're a fan of Metroid or a hardcore gamer. For the first Metroid, I gave it a 7 out of 10, standing for at least give it a try. I'll give Metroid 2, The Return of Samus, a 6.5 out of 10, standing for just simply meh. Even though Samus herself has improved a little, the gameplay has become slightly worse, but it's still worth a try. Alright, so far we've had 2 okay games, but I assure you, the worst is over. Now the next game we're going to look at is not only considered to be the best Metroid game ever, but also one of the best games ever made. It's Super Metroid for the Super Nintendo. Oh yeah.